All right, and we are live. It's Dr. J here in the house. Happy Friday. Hope everyone is doing phenomenal. So now that the winter season or the fall season is upon us, people, my patients, everyone I know is talking about immune support. So let's dive into immune support off the bat. So your immune system has two major branches, Th1, Th2, right? One is kind of more of the first responder branch, which is the Th1, and the other one's the kind of the delayed immune antibody branch, that's the Th2. So the first thing we want to do is, one, keep our immune system strong, and we're going to be able to do that naturally with just good sleep, keeping sugar down. Sugar is basically C6, or glucose is C6H12O6. It's very similar to vitamin C, the chemical structure of it. So the more sugar you take, you actually inhibit vitamin C and its processes on the macrophages. They help the macrophages gobble up junk in the body, little Pac-Man, they just gobble up stuff. So vitamin C gets inhibited with high amounts of glucose and sugar, right? Sugar is going to be just basically sucrose, which is fructose and glucose. So all that's going to have negative impacts on the immune system. Of course, cortisol is going to shut down your immune system. Lack of sleep is going to shut down your immune system. Overexercise as well, poor nutrition. All of these variables are really important on the diet and lifestyle side to support your immune system. Also, just decreasing getting exposed to pathogens and antigens by being around sick people. So washing hands, those kind of things. Those are kind of like common first line things everyone knows about. Now, regarding immune support, I like to really boost up that Th1 immune response. So some of my favorite herbs and compounds to help that: astragalus is awesome. Golden seal is awesome. Silver is great. I love silver, especially with throat issues, because you can gargle with it, swallow. Medicinal mushrooms are amazing. I love reishi mushroom. It really stimulates the natural killer cells. You can do other mushrooms like maitake, shiitake, cordyceps, lion's mane. These are really good immune boosters. Reishi mushroom, for instance, has these compounds in them called beta-1,3-glucans, which stimulate the immune system. Also, reishi has what are called triterpenes, and triterpenes actually have an effect on deactivating viruses, which is really powerful. So any viruses that's coming in, it can have a really good positive effect. Higher dose vitamin C is still excellent as well. Higher dose vitamin C. Higher dose vitamin D acutely is wonderful. Really, really good. I'm going to put a couple articles I wrote a couple years ago on the topic. It's what to do when you get sick, part 1 and part 2. Take a look at both of those. So silver, obviously, echinacea is going to be really good. Astragalus, andrographis is great. All the medicinal mushrooms. High-dose monolaurin is amazing for viruses. It really helps digest and break down that viral envelope, which helps expose the virus to the immune system, so then the immune system can attack it better. Those are some of my good first-line therapies right there. Hope that helps. I go over a little bit more in depth in those articles that we'll put in the references below. All right, any questions, feel free to let me know off the bats. Protein's important. All your antibodies are actually made from protein. So that's really important, because if you're not getting enough good quality protein, you're not going to be able to make your antibodies, make enough antibodies. If you have poor digestion, not enough stomach acid, and you can't break things down, well, yeah, you're going to have a problem with that for sure. So we really want to make sure antibodies and all those things are 100% dialed in. All right, I'm going to go to a little live Q&A session here. Try to keep it to the immune response. It's great. Let's dive in. Okay, Gupta writes in, I have some gum issues. My gums don't tighten up around my lower front teeth. Any advice? I even get dental cleaning done. What style of oils can I do? So off the bat, make sure your gut's doing good. Make sure your gut is great. Make sure you're digesting foods really well. Number one, there's a great toothpaste that I sell that you can get. It's called Revitin, that has a lot of good CoQ10. Topical CoQ10 is amazing on the gums. So that's a really great toothpaste to use. Dennis writes in, how do I protect myself from the norovirus? Well, if you get the norovirus, it's typically going to be in food, or typically food, I think, or maybe inhaling it in the environment. Monolaurin is great. Colloidal silver is great. These are really good options to help break down that viral envelope. Very helpful. The things I mentioned when I started out today's video, those are some really good things too. Lambert writes in, Dr. J, do you test for histamine issues, stool or blood tests? My stool test was way outside the range. I seem to react badly. Decoloration symptoms, VSL3. Have you had experience with probiotics? Can the probiotics produce a histamine crisis? Some of the caseae species of lactobacillus can, so it just depends. If you're continually having histamine symptoms with higher histamine foods, or you're having histamine symptoms like headaches, like the rashes, the urticaria, the hives, then yeah, keeping a lower histamine diet, using the natural histamine degranulators like I mentioned, stinging nettle, bromelain, those kind of things, kidney, glandular tissue, all of that can be very helpful. And then we can always do lower histamine probiotic strains, megaspore, sporebiotic strains, Saccharomyces tend to be good. And if we need to be on a probiotic that has lower histamine, there are some good ones out there without the KCI species. During probiotics, would you recommend also using colostrum? Potentially that could be helpful. I don't seem to have leaky gut based on my latest zonulin value, which was really low. Good, yeah. So those are the things that I'd recommend there. Hope that helps. Question 2 of your recent video, anxiety and fasting didn't fully upload. I was looking forward to those videos. I'm not sure what you're talking about. They should all be there regarding that. I'll take a look at it. Karen Williams writes in, for someone with autoimmune disease, would you recommend mushrooms and vitamin D, being the immune system is boosted? So vitamin D is going to have a good modulatory effect on it supports the Th3 regulatory, or the Th3 and the Treg. And that's going to have a modulating effect on the immune system. So vitamin D would be fine. Now, medicinal mushrooms is hard to say. If you're really overly Th1 dominant and you take some medicinal mushrooms and you feel worse, then I would not do it. But a lot of people, if they've kind of come in and made some diet changes and they're calming down their gut and they're digesting better and they're on a great diet, and maybe they're knocking out some of the infections in their gut, maybe they should be able to handle some of it. But it's worth giving it a try and seeing how you do. But if you have any negative symptoms, then yeah, you definitely want to be careful of that, especially if your antibodies are really high. If they aren't that high, then no big deal. Then no big deal if they're like, TPOs in the low 100s or something, then it may be worth adding it in. That's perfect. All right, cool. Any questions there? Oh, and then regarding my videos that are cut off, that's designed that way. Those are just highlighted questions from the podcast. If you want to go look at the full podcast, go look at the full podcast link below, or just Google it on my YouTube page and you'll get the full podcast. So I'm having a couple of clips from good podcast questions, so you're not going to see the full podcast, and that's by design, just to generate more content. Do you know of any gut issues correlated with histamine? Well, you got it backwards. So histamine is a result of inflammation in the gut. Histamine is the effect, not the cause. So you got to look at it from the cause. So you get to all the inflammation in the gut via food, infectious debris, poor digestion, lack of stomach acid, lack of nutrition. So you get to the root. Histamine is an issue that's going to flare with high amounts of inflammation. You can do things to knock it down. You can do things that stimulate it, but you also have to look at it as it's an effect, not necessarily a cause. Can you talk about lupus and optic neuropathy? Well, anytime you have lupus or an autoimmune condition, you're going to increase inflammation. And the more inflammation you have, especially self-induced inflammation, meaning your immune system is attacking itself, different tissues can get attacked. And that's all going to be genetically based. So different conditions where the myelin's attacked in the nervous system, that's called MS. Where the substantia nigra in the midbrain is attacked, that's called Parkinson's. Where the thyroid's attacked, that's called Hashimoto's. If the pancreas is attacked, that's called type 1 diabetes. So it just depends. Wherever the system is attacked, wherever the organs or wherever the part of the body is being attacked, there's typically a disease based on that part of the body. The root cause tends to be similar, right? There's a toxic stress from the environment. There's a dietary stress, whether there's food allergens or not enough nutrition coming in. There's usually a poor digestive stress or a gut stressor, whether it's a gut infection. There's a dysbiotic bacteria imbalance stress. Those are all kind of first-line things that need to be looked at, and they aren't going to change based on the disease. So you're going to not do anything different based on, well, this person has MS, this person has RA. You're still going to do the same first-line things. That being said, with lupus, autoimmune diet, that's going to be a really first-line therapy. And anytime we see more inflammation in certain areas, we're going to work on maybe giving more nutrients to help that area. So if I'm seeing optic neuropathy, inflammation in the eye, I'm going to really make sure we have adequate levels of vitamin A. I'm going to make sure we have adequate levels of lutein, right? Really important antioxidant for the eye. You get that in egg yolks too. So I'm going to really make sure omega-3s. I may give some natural anti-inflammatories to calm things down. Of course, I'm going to be doing all the diet stuff. So you don't really do anything different based on what tissue is being attacked. the tissue that's being attacked is just genetically predisposed. So you work on the gut, you work on the diet, you work on calming down the inflammation. And then if you know certain areas, thrive with certain nutrients, then you give more nutrients for that area. So with the thyroid, we may work on giving more selenium and magnesium and zinc. If it's the pancreas and we're having pancreatic issues, we may give more chromium, right, or vanadium. So we may just look at what that organ is and then give more nutrients to support that organ's function. Hope that helps. Anthony writes in, hey, Anthony, hope you're doing good. Any concerns with low dopamine and Parkinson's? Yeah, definitely. There's definitely a concern with that. The difference is Parkinson's, you have an autoimmune attack of the substantia nigra cells that make dopamine. So Parkinson's, there's a destruction in the cells in the brain that make it. And so therefore, you don't have enough cells making it. So where if you have lower dopamine because of stress, that's a different thing. You're making it, but you're just burning it up, right? Because of stress, because dopamine will go downstream to make adrenaline. So if you have a lot of stress, you will just take dopamine and go downstream and burn it up, versus the upstream cells are being destroyed in Parkinson's. And how do you know that? Well, you start seeing resting tremors, right? You need dopamine to keep your cells relaxed, so you start seeing these resting tremors. And then you watch guys like Michael J. Fox, they actually move a lot, because if you move, you can calm the tremors down. So if you're like this when you're resting, but if you move, you can calm it down. So people that have Parkinson's, they gesticulate a lot and they're moving to kind of cover up the tremors, where like MS or a basal ganglia disease, it's the opposite. They're okay when they're resting, but then when they move, they actually tremor worse. So MS or basal ganglia issues, movement, there's more tremors. Parkinson's, there's more tremors at resting, and they calm down a little bit more at movement. Hope that helps. Dennis writes in, can plantar warts give rise to cancer? There is a viral component to it, but it all comes down to your immune system. We all have cancer cells in our body. It's just the more our immune system kind of lets them grow, so to speak. It's like being a bad parent. You don't give your kid boundaries and discipline. Everything kind of gets worse over time. If you don't have a good immune system is like a good parent to your cancer cells. So your immune system keeps those cancer cells in check. And not having good nutrition, having excess inflammation from all kinds of physical, chemical, and emotional stressors will allow those cancer cells to run rampant. Excess glucose, all those things are going to feed it. So as long as you keep those things under control, you should be fine. Now, topically, on like a papilloma or like a wart, you could do a poultice of apple cider vinegar, put it in a like a Q-tip or like a little cotton swab, and you could tape it to that area. You can also grind up a little bit of curcumin with it. That can be helpful. You can also do a little bit of melaleuca or tea tree oil. That's all very helpful and can resolve some of those papilloma warts for sure. What's the connection between neuropathy and, I think you mean copper? So I'm not sure what the link is. If you have excess copper, copper toxicity can potentially cause problems. So we would just look at where the excess copper is coming from and decrease that. There's also a natural zinc to copper ratio. And so we want to make sure we have a lot of good nutrient dense, rich foods in zinc. If you look at Mother Nature though, typically almost every high zinc food also is high copper. So if you're doing a lot of zinc, you should have a good balance of copper. So you really want to look at where the foods are coming from that are just high in copper and don't have the zinc to balance it out. Yeah, Anthony, you're totally welcome. Glad you appreciate the analogy. Excellent. As a healthy individual, what is the part of your daily supplement stack? So, core foundational things, selenium, magnesium, zinc, omega-3s. I'll do a combination of fish oil, cod liver oil. Right now I'm on a big glandular kick, so I'm doing multi-glandular support. I'm doing organs from all glands, even brain and bone marrow, collagen peptides, and then typically adaptogens, and then Krebs cycle amino acids. I adjust my protocol based on my organic acid test, so I'll do it every 6 months. Brain amino acids too, dopamine, serotonin. So I'll just adjust it according to what my labs say. But I work 10, 12-hour days. I work hard. Having 2 kids as well and trying to be a dad and be there, it's a lot of stress, right? So I supplement and give extra nutrients so I can burn the candle at both ends and not pay the price as much. So you got to figure out where you're at. Could I, let's say, need less supplements and work 6 hours a day? Sure. But for me, that's not an option right now. For a lot of patients, a lot of people, it's not an option. So you can use supplements to fill in the gap. And I always say, do not use supplements to replace a poor diet. Make sure the diet's dialed in first, and then you can use supplements to kind of fill in the additional stress that you want to add on top of an already good diet. That's really important. Let's see here. Why do I get heartburn on an empty stomach? Well, that's interesting. It's hard to say. So I'd want to know what causes the heartburn, how long after your meal, what are you drinking, is it just water? But more than likely, there's some level of bacterial overgrowth in the gut and inflammation in the gut, and that's preventing the esophageal sphincter from closing. So I'd want to, one, make sure we figure out if it's H. pylori or bacterial overgrowth. I'd want to look at making sure you have enough stomach acid and enzymes at each meal so we can break food down. And I'd want to look at SIBO and H. pylori and other infections too. So there's just more questions I'd have, but I'd want to make sure those things are under control and that we're eating foods that aren't going to be causing problems. How do you increase serotonin naturally? Well, I mean, naturally just through food, right? Because serotonin comes from tryptophan. Tryptophan's an amino acid. So eating high quality animal protein and also being able to digest it. Make sure the animal protein is good quality. Supplementally, we can give amino acids that are already broken down. Why would we do that? Because there's a transaction fee with protein, right? Half of the energy that we get from protein goes into breaking it down. So when we give amino acids, it's like there's no transaction fee. You get all of it, and it doesn't put any stress on your gut. So that can be really helpful therapeutically. And then certain adaptogens can be helpful, rhodiola, ginseng, St. John's wort, etc. Costia, you're welcome. Thank you. Is it safe to have a mild bout of alcohol after being healed from leaky gut and histamine intolerance? I have not had any alcohol in 10 years. Yeah, I mean, there's no problem with alcohol. One, just try to make sure there's a little bit of food in your tummy. That way you're not causing blood sugar issues. So what happens with alcohol is alcohol lowers your blood sugar. So when you go to a bar or restaurant, they want to get you your refined carbohydrates first, right? Your bread. They want to get you your pretzels or wherever. So they're getting you your refined carbohydrates. Then they're going to give you alcohol to lower your blood sugar. So they want to create essentially a reactive hypoglycemic drop. Why? Because appetite goes up. So you're more than likely to order more food at the meal. Whether or not restaurant owners know that, that's physiologically what's happening. So what I tend to do is bring activated charcoal, bring things to help buffer the toxin, try to choose drinks that are going to be lower in sugar and lower in toxins, hard alcohol, good clean hard alcohol, drier wine, stay away from the beer and the gluten alcohol, and try to have some good protein with your meal. So I'll tend to go out and have like a glass of Prosecco or champagne, and I'll do oysters. So I'll start with oysters. I'll do like a half a dozen oysters, lots of zinc, lots of good protein. I'll sip on my champagne. I'll have some activated charcoal. And then I'll typically have a good steak with a couple of veggies. And then usually my splurge, my big cheat in the meal is like mashed potatoes. So try to still be gluten-free, but I love the extra carbs. And then usually for dinner, I'll do like a heavy cream and some berries. And then usually a decaf coffee or a cappuccino. So that's kind of like my indulgent at night. So I try to still always stay away from gluten when possible. I'll carb it up a little bit as well, which I think is okay. And then just choose good alcohol and just know, don't create this blood sugar roller coaster, which will cause you to order a lot more crap at the restaurant. Why do I get nausea when drinking water on an empty stomach in the morning? Hard to say why you get nausea. There could be gut issues. You probably have a lot of stress going on. You could always put a little bit of lemon juice and some sea salt in that water. You could always sip some ginger tea to start your day. That may be better to start. Probably just a lot of cortisol issues going on in the morning. So like my routine is I'll have my coffee with some butter and collagen and amino acids and MCT, and then I'll typically have a nice glass of celery juice afterwards, get about 1 gram of potassium, and then I'll have like my lunch today will be a big salad with a full avocado in there, maybe 6 ounces of some kind of a protein source that gets rotated, and then I'll have this like kind of paleo granola bar that's made from pecans and almonds, and then I'll have a keto cup, 1 keto cup, and I may sip on a kombucha, and then tonight I may have a steak or something, pasture fed. Typically, I try to be very low carb during the week, so my wife has specific instructions, low carb during the week, and then on the weekends, I'll pop the carbs up. So I try to be really good during the week, and then on the weekends, I still try to be gluten-free, but I will pop the carbs up a little bit higher on the weekend. What's is taking GABA safe? It seems to be illegal in the UK. Any side effects? I'm not sure if GABA is illegal in the UK. I mean, what you may be confusing with it is phenibut, 2,3-phenylbutyric acid, which is a GABA analog, may be illegal over there. But I don't think GABA is illegal at all. It's an amino acid compound, gamma-aminobutyric acid. I could be wrong though, so post a link if I'm incorrect. What has been the healing time with gastritis in your experience? Any supplements and diets you recommend? No issue with reflux, just the stomach. So yeah, take a look at my video that I did the other day called The Root Cause of Acid Reflux. It's on my board right there. But go through that video. It's basically the 6 R's. So start with the food, start with the enzymes and acids, work on gut healing, gut supporting nutrients, and then test and look for infections, bacterial overgrowth, H. pylori, etc. Is it possible to be reactionary with GI Clear 3? I love GI Clear 1, 4, and 5. I had no die-off reactions with 1, 4, and 5. Well, GI Clear 3 is pure silver. So silver is pretty darn benign, but it's possible you're killing things off too fast. So start with like 1/4 teaspoon and then work your way up. So just start lower and slower and gently taper up. How long to detox from mold if I'm having neurological issues? Well, it depends. So number 1 is make sure your gut and your diet and everything else is under control. Number 2, make sure your house is fully remediated and you have really good air filtration. And then number 3, depending on kind of everything else, mold comes, I don't really give anything specific to the mold until I have a foundational support. And if I give something off the bat, and we don't have foundational support yet, it's usually a very, very gentle binder and very, very gentle lymph drainage. So I keep it very simple to lymph drainage and binding because I don't want to push mold out faster than the body can handle it. But I do know that there is mold there and we want to kind of be able to glom onto it and pull it out. So the first thing is work on the environment, work on your digestion, work on your stress first, work on getting everything cleaned up, get a good air filter. Austin Air HealthMate Plus is great. Go to my site, justinhealth.com/shop. I have them there. I got one right in my office over here next to me that works phenomenal. 15 pounds of zeolite, 15 pounds of activated charcoal will soak up a lot of VOC and potential mold toxins if they're in the air. Can the 6 R's really manage Crohn's and colitis? Can 6 R's remedy both? Yes. When you have Crohn's or colitis, though, sometimes we have to implement an elemental template to kind of calm the inflammation down in the beginning, number 1. And then number 2, there's a lot less latitude with Crohn's and colitis patients. They have irritable bowel disease. We got to be more careful. Number 1, we may have to start with more like soups and bone broths and things that are more pre-digested. So there's ways that we work within that to make it more incremental on the diet. We may not even be able to handle any HCl in the beginning. So you really want to work with a good clinician to help with that. Thoughts on CBD oil for mold? I mean, it would be just symptom management. It's not going to fix anything, but it would be symptom management. I don't have a problem with it. Ronan writes in, are you worried about lectins, oxalates, or other anti-nutrients and toxins in veggies? Only if you have a lot of issues. Only if you have a lot of health issues. If not, I'm not worried about it. 54 and still regular cycling female, but having massive crash in energy for a few days before menstruating. What is causing this huge energy problem? Probably a drop in progesterone. What's probably happening is your progesterone is probably crashing out earlier, right before you bleed, and that's probably where it's coming from. So you probably want to get your hormones tested in that last half of your luteal phase and get on an adrenal and female hormone support program. Suppressor writes in that 24-hour fast. Why do I get itchy skin towards the end of the fast? Is it possible I'm detoxifying or die off? Thank you for answering my last question about alcohol. You're welcome. Hard to say. Hard to say. Could be a die-off issue. Very well could be. I want to know about other issues that are going on. I want to test the gut out, but it very well could be you're killing things off for sure. What's the best test for measuring thiamine levels? So, I mean, you could do, thiamine is B1, so you could run a SpectraCell test, which is an intracellular nutrient panel. You could also run a NutriEval or an ion panel through Genova to assess that as well. And then, of course, there's certain organic acids that will correlate with those B vitamins and would correlate with thiamine. Yeah, organic acids going to be really good. Those specific organic acids are, for the B vitamins, I'll list them off for you. So yeah, those are going to be alpha-keto isovalerate, alpha-keto isocaparate, alpha-keto beta-methylvalerate. Those are going to be the big organic acids. So if you have an organic acid test, look for those numbers to assess that. Costia writes, and do you think Lyme disease can be healed, or one carries the bacteria the whole life and must strengthen their immune system in order to keep bacteria in check? I mean, Lyme disease, I mean, it's real, but it's a farce in itself where a lot of people have, Lyme has every symptom under the book can be Lyme. So the problem is when you have Lyme, people come in to see a clinician. They're like, oh, you must have Lyme. And then they don't work on the diet. They don't work on the adrenals. They don't go after the gut. And they go right after the Lyme. So the problem with Lyme is doctors that are Lyme doctors, they get so myopically focused on the Lyme and they forget about the foundations. It's like taking a basketball player and saying, hey, we're going to work on you slam dunking, but like we're not going to work on your dribbling. We're not going to work on your free throws. We're not going to work on your passing. Let's just work on a slam dunk. It's like, well, there's foundational skills that come before dunking, right? There's foundational blocks that we have to look at before just going after Lyme. Lyme may be an issue, but we have to assess it. Now, if it's acute Lyme, you went out and got a tick bite, you got a bullseye rash, we handle acute stuff a little bit differently, so we got to draw a line between acute and chronic. So Lyme is real, and it can definitely be a stressor. My issue is the myopic focus on it, and everything else gets tossed to the side. Oh, let me answer a question on Facebook. Maggie writes in, hey Maggie, hope you're doing good. My brain fog seems to be getting worse. I'm under a lot of stress currently. Any advice? Well, it depends why it's getting worse. If you're under more stress, we could do more adaptogens to help curtail the stress. I mean, if we can't manage the stress, we make sure sleep is good. We make sure we're not adding to the brain fog with gluten and refined sugar. We can always do more magnesium or curcumin or even some CBD to help kind of calm down the inflammation. So we can use nutrients to calm it down. But just make sure that you are dealing with all of the stress to the best of your ability. You're not adding more to it by doing more alcohol or more refined sugar or more gluten, because that will just rev things up even more. So do your best to get more sleep, more relaxation. Try doing like a flotation tank is great because you absorb tons of magnesium, which can really help with brain inflammation too. Excellence. All right. What are your thoughts on poison frog medicine, Kambu from South African traditions and healing and boosmitting? I'm not sure. I do know a lot of the frog venom, for instance, like hunters would take the frog venom and they'd put it in their eyes, and it would dilate their eyes and allow them to see better at night when they were hunting. So that's kind of a cool little frog story I heard recently. Dr. J, my O test shows high kynurenate, low quinolinate, seem to be deficient as a B6 cofactor, but B6 blood tests show it's slightly high. Any ideas? B6 is one of the most important B vitamins. B6 helps with the synthesis of all of your brain chemicals. So pyridoxal 5-phosphate, pyridoxine hydrochloride, these are all like B6 kind of derivatives. B6 really helps with sleep, with relaxation, with mood. Big fan of B6. If you see high amounts of kynurenate or xanthurenate, that means you're burning up B6. So supplementing with a good B complex with that is great. I think that's good low-hanging fruit. The more stressed you get, the more you burn through your B vitamins. Thoughts on carbs with gastritis? Hard to digest. Thanks for answering my questions. So with carbs, it just depends, right? Higher FODMAP vegetables that are raw versus applesauce, right? So that you kind of have to look at the fiber content, how it's broken down, because a lot of times when your gut's inflamed, just lots of fiber and fermentable foods could be a stressor on the gut. So when there's gastritis, we're cutting down the fermentable nature of the foods. We're pre-digesting those foods as well, whether it's an applesauce or a lower FODMAP vegetable that's already steamed or cooked, right? Sauteed kale, coconut oil kind of thing, easier to eat than a whole bunch of raw broccoli, right? So you have to look at the types of carbs, how it's cooked, the fermentable nature of the foods, and as well as the anti-nutrients in the food, right? Peel it, mash it, steam it, keep the FODMAPs and the anti-nutrients down. Excellence. I think I answered everything. Anything else, y'all? Let me know. If not, here I'll be signing out. I got a bunch of patients I got to go check in on. Hope you guys have a phenomenal weekend. Put your comments down below. Let me know. Let me know what's going on. Thoughts and recommendations for future podcasts and future videos would be great. Excellent. All right, you guys have a phenomenal weekend. Take care. Bye, y'all.